run. Republican National Committee Chair Reince Priebus watched our Trump interview along with all of you, and he joins us now from RNC headquarters here in Washington. Chairman Priebus, you just heard Donald Trump. He's keeping open the possibility that he may not support the Republican nominee if it's not him, keeping open the possibility that he might run as an independent candidate. Does that worry you?
Well, not really. I mean, I think some of this stuff is leverage and candidates that are posturing for a potentially open convention. But look, one of the things that I think people are missing is that this pledge, this pledge to support the eventual nominee comes from really a data agreement that the candidates signed. So without boring everyone to tears, we've spent hundreds of millions of dollars on data and information over the last several years at the RNC. These candidates have access to that data. In exchange for getting stuff from the national party, we say, well, are you willing to support the nominee? And they say, yes, we are, and they sign a document. My point would be, if a candidate isn't willing to commit to the principles and values of our party, then they ought to just tell us. But if they commit to it, then they should do it. And these candidates are running to be the nominee of our party. We're not running for their loyalty. They're running so that one of them will be chosen by us. And so I can't imagine a candidate for any position anywhere in America running in front of a group and saying, well, we don't know if we want to be part of this group, but we want to be the chairman or president of that group anyway.
But respectfully, sir, I feel like you're missing the point, which is obviously they're running to win. But what Trump is saying, and actually to a certain degree Cruz and Kasich as well, is if they don't win and if the other guy wins, then they may not support the candidate. I mean, the result of that would be that the GOP would be split and would have an even harder time winning in November.
Well, certainly. And you can't win by subtracting and dividing. And I understand that. I mean, we're the party of the open door, which means you got to let people in. We've got to grow. We've got to unify. And with unity, anything is possible. So certainly there will be work to do in Cleveland, especially if it's an open convention, in bringing the party together. I think we're going to have a lot of time to do that. But yeah, is it going to be a challenge with rhetoric like this on all sides? Sure. But that's what we have to do in putting on a convention that unifies and is open and transparent, and people feel that they had a fair shake, and we have to respect the voice and vote of all of the folks out there and the delegates and the voters. So I get the challenge.
I want to get back to this question. You say that when Trump and the other candidates got the voter data from the RNC, they signed an agreement. Did they, in that agreement, did they pledge, in return for getting the data, did they pledge to support the nominee? And are you prepared to enforce that agreement?
Well, I mean, listen, I'm not going to get into every detail of the agreement, but it's a data exchange agreement with the RNC, and among the things that they can use at the RNC, one of the things that we say is, look, we'll give you these things, but you have to agree that you're going to support the party and the eventual nominee. They've all agreed to that, and we'll see what happens. I would just say this. I really do believe, though, that this is posturing, and I know posturing can have an effect, and it means that the challenges could be greater. So I'm not dispelling your point in these questions, but I personally think that these folks are posturing, and I think that they want to be loyal to the party. I think they will be loyal to the party, but really it's about the people out there and respecting the voices of the folks both in the states and on the floor of the convention.
I just want to button this down briefly if I can, because you say that there's an agreement. You gave them something of value, which was this voter data, your access to your files. So are you prepared, if they break the agreement, to enforce it? In effect, what I'm saying is, are you prepared to sue Donald Trump or one of the other candidates if they don't support the nominee, as they pledged to do, to get the data?
Well, look, I mean, no one's broken the pledge. I mean, talking about what might be hypothetical is one thing. It's certainly not any standing. It doesn't provide standing to do anything. It's just a bunch of talk at this point. But certainly we expect that when candidates make commitments that they keep them, and that's about what I'm going to say about it.
Okay. After Mitt Romney's defeat in 2012, you commissioned what has been called an autopsy of what went wrong and what the party needed to do differently going forward in 2014 and 2016. And the report concluded that the GOP had to do a much better job reaching out to Hispanics and African Americans, women and young people. But the Washington Post has a new poll out this month. 85% of Hispanics view Trump unfavorably. 80% of African Americans view him unfavorably. 80% of young people. 75% of women. Chairman Priebus, the Post concluded that Trump at this point would be the most unpopular candidate for president in modern times in either major party.
Well, look, I mean, obviously we're having a conversation within a small circle of people, and you know, tone and tenor have consequences, and it means that the challenges in the general election will be there for us to make the message to every American, no matter who they are, that our party is a door that we want them to walk through. But look, if you look at what's happening on the Democrat side of the aisle, you look at Hillary Clinton.
If I may, just briefly, though, but hasn't Donald Trump, hasn't Ted Cruz closed that door for a lot of these groups that you wanted to reach out to?
No, I don't think so. I think there's a lot of time, Chris, and in the general election we're going to be having 10 people every 10 blocks in these communities, and you saw the difference that we made with what we learned from that Growth and Opportunity Report in 2014 when we won 46% of the Hispanic vote in Colorado. We spent about $8 million on the ground doing it. We won 28% of the black vote in Ohio. That didn't just happen because of just coincidence. It happened because we reached out to tell people of the values of equality and freedom and opportunity that our party provides. We're going to do the same thing. We didn't do that in 2012. We just atrophied in 2012. And so, certainly, yes, tone matters. And when you say things that people don't agree with, it can have an effect, but we can overcome it.
Are going to forget what Donald Trump has said about illegal immigrants, what Ted Cruz has said about illegal immigrants? I mean, they're not going to forget it.
Listen, I don't know what the outcome is going to be over the next several months. And certainly if you're on the ground making the presentation to Hispanic voters across this country with a real operation, with real people, talking about the values of our party, I think that you can improve over 2012. We have to improve over 2012. But it's my job at the RNC to make sure that we're providing an infrastructure in place so that you can go door to door. You can go to the church festival on Sunday. You can go to the black chamber meetings and talk about the economy. I think that's how you move voters across this country.
One last question I want to get into with you, Chairman, in the time we have left. The RNC set up a website this week to explain how an open, contested convention would work. And I want to focus in on one specific issue that could become a big deal in July, and that's Rule 40B. Of the Republican convention. It says each candidate for nomination for president of the United States shall demonstrate the support of a majority of the delegates from each of 8 or more states. They got to have a majority from 8 or more states, or they can't even be placed their name in nomination. Now, that's pretty clear in the first ballot. The question is what happens on the second ballot if, and a lot of these delegates then become unbound, if a number of them then decide to go for somebody else. Can that person become a candidate for nomination? And I guess the real question is, do you have to be a candidate for nomination? Can somebody completely outside, if 1237 delegates vote for that person, does that become the nominee?
Okay, so first of all, that rule is a rule that was drafted by the Romney delegates of 2012, and that rule obviously will be reviewed by the 2016 Rules Committee, which will be made up mostly of Trump and Cruz delegates, and you know they will likely have an incentive to probably not change that rule. But let's just play out your hypothetical. If in fact that rule stays in place, you're asking, number one, can someone on a later ballot, when most of the delegates are unbound, be nominated? I think they can be, but that would be an extreme hypothetical, I think, and highly unlikely. But you asked the question. I think it's possible. And at that point, if you get into a multi-ballot convention where you got 5 or 6 or 7 rounds, it's possible that a person can be nominated that's not one of the 3. But my position is, and I think it's absolutely correct, our nominee is likely to be one of the 3 people running. So I mean, I think it's interesting how far out we can play this out, but it's possible as you lay out.
Chairman Priebus, to be continued. Thank you. Thanks for talking with us today, sir.
You bet.